Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my wild card weekend predictions for the 2021-2022 NFL season. Well, ladies and gentlemen, after 272 regular season games, 18 weeks of 16 teams playing 17 games of football, try saying that 5 times fast, we are at the end of the regular season. And we have our 14 teams in the AFC and NFC that have qualified for the playoffs on the road to Super Bowl 56 in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium. And for the Fanatic, a great way to end the 2021-2022 NFL regular season is by having winning records both against the spread and straight up. Definitely not the highest I wanted to go with my against the spread and straight up picks, but I will gladly take winning weeks in both aspects, in both regards. So, against the spread to end the year, I went 8-7-1 against the spread. The one game I got a push on was I took the New York Jets plus 17 to cover against the Buffalo Bills. The final score ended up being 27-10 Buffalo. So, anybody that picked that game against the spread got a push. So, the other 15 games I went 8-7. Some of the highlights were hedging with Pittsburgh and San Francisco, who won outright. See, there were those. I took Washington covered by at least 6.5. Dallas covered. Minnesota covered. So a lot of those other games, Detroit covered by 11. Though that was kind of weird how they played the starters in the first half. But by the start of the second half, they all decided to just back off. So kudos to the Lions, though, for winning, I believe, 3 of their final 6 or 3 of their final 5 games after starting out 9-1 as the season began, so kudos to them. I do think the future of Detroit, for the first time in a while, is kind of going up on the upswing, to where there's optimism going into next season to where this team could go. But a few of the other games, though, I didn't expect Jacksonville and Indianapolis as 15 or 16 point underdogs to outright beat the Colts. I don't think anybody did, though I do kind of regret that 16 point spread. It worked against the Pats. They won 50-10 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, 50-10. So I thought the Colts were that kind of quality team. Obviously, after what they showed yesterday, after they gave up 6 sacks to the Jacksonville defensive line, the Jaguars got 2 turnovers where the Colts didn't get any. And this was 2 teams that one team was leading the league in turnovers, the other was not, or the other one had the fewest amount of turnovers. That was nuts. And then you had Seattle and Arizona. Seattle possibly getting the final win in the Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson era, a 38-31 victory, a 38-30 or 38-31 victory over the Cardinals. Nicely done for the Seahawks. Weird way for the Cardinals to basically give the Rams a division by the Rams backing in, but who knows? Congrats to them. And then, of course, the final game 272, Chargers and Raiders at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. That was the best game of the entire season. It was wacky. It was wild. Herbert threw over 60 times in the game. He threw 3 touchdowns and a horrible interception. The Raiders, I think everybody's going to talk about Brandon Staley and his bizarre decision-making. The timeout, I don't mind that one as much compared to the 4th and 3 at his own 18. He loses 2 yards and basically gifts the Raiders a field goal that ended up basically at the end costing them the game in hindsight. But, again, hindsight's 20/20. But what a bizarre happy ending for the Raiders, who get their 6th win, I believe, at the end of regulation on the final play of the game. And I felt so nervous for Steelers fans, even though we had lost the Ravens and we're now out of the playoffs on the longest losing streak in the John Harbaugh era at 6 games. 5 of those losses, by the way, by 3 points or fewer. But I really thought, oh my God, the one thing the Steelers could not have was a tie. And they were literally 1 second away. Or Daniel Carlson, who was 34 of 34. Or 34 of 34, 35 of 35, either one of those numbers. He has never missed in the Raiders' home stadium as the Raiders kicker. And I really thought if he missed that field goal, both the Chargers and Raiders make the playoffs. And the Steelers, after getting the Colts, win. This would have been obsolete if the Colts would have just handled their business as 15-point favorites against the Jags. They wouldn't have got in because of the tie that nobody really thought was going to happen. So, kudos to the Raiders, and I do want to say real quickly, I hope Rich Bisaccia is the permanent head coach or the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. He has earned that job, and I know it's Black Monday, and everybody's seen the news, or fans have seen the news, about the firings of the head coach and general manager for the Bears, Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, the firing of the head coach and general manager for the Vikings, Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman. The Broncos fired their coach on Sunday morning, which was Vic Fangio. And the Dolphins fired their head coach Brian Flores, along with the firing of John Gruden and the firing of Urban Meyer a few weeks ago. So there are 6 jobs open right now. And to me, I feel like the best jobs is Miami or Minnesota. And I just want to say for everybody out there, just my quick thoughts about Miami, because I think that was the one that threw. I would have fired Brian Flores too. I don't think Brian Flores is that good of a coach. People are angry. They're comparing it to Jim Caldwell. I would have fired Jim Caldwell too. Okay? So, to me, and anybody out there if they disagree, let me know. Okay? Brian Flores is a loser. He is a bad head coach. He is 24-25 overall. The man had to make the playoffs. And he had his chance. He started out, everybody, 1-7. In one of 2 Urban Meyer victories. Urban Meyer, who's been canned for weeks, he was better than Brian Flores. Urban Meyer was better than Brian Flores on that day. And that's inexcusable, in my opinion. Okay? But Brian Flores deserved to get fired. Okay? I think the only problem is, the thing that complicated this, was I heard something this morning, that Deshaun Watson, the Texans quarterback, obviously, that's going through this, one of the big reasons why he wanted to go to Miami was Brian Flores. And the owner today, Stephen Ross, said he was not interested in getting Deshaun Watson. I think it's a bit of bull. That's just me personally. But I think that is the problem that if they were serious about trying to get Deshaun, I think that Brian should have stayed. But if the owner's serious not getting Deshaun, Brian Flores was not a good coach. He doesn't, in my opinion, he doesn't deserve to be a head coach again. Adam Schefter said today, he's got a bunch of hirings. Who wants to hire a 24-25 losing bum? Would I hire Brian Flores as a defensive coordinator at any open position or any new staff? Absolutely. But people are talking about, he beat Belichick. In fact, he's 4-2 against Belichick. The best record since anybody's played Belichick. What does that have to do with anything? I don't care if, the people that beat Bill Walsh, does that matter? People that beat Tony Dungy, does that really matter? Beating Belichick is not that big of a deal. Matt Patricia did it back in 2017, week 3. He did it. So, to me, this next coach for the Dolphins has a great opportunity, but I do not think it's Brian Flores. And I think Brian Flores is just another coach that's a defensive coordinator. He's more of a coordinator than a coach. That's just my opinion about that. Zimmer and them, that was expected. Nagy and them, that was expected. Fangio, that was expected. All those other guys were just kind of mediocre coaches. I think there's plenty of coaches next year. Joe Judge, Matt Rule, Ron Rivera, Frank Reich, especially after yesterday. John Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, and even depending on what happens, Mike McCarthy and Sean McVay, or Mike McCarthy or Sean McDermott, depending on what happens in this postseason. And Kyle Shanahan. There's another 10 coaches right there that I think, depending on how their year goes next year, they're going to be on the same hot seat. There's very few coaches on like Belichick, Matt LaFleur, Arians, Mike Vrabel. Very few coaches are on solid ground, in my opinion, moving forward long term past next year. But we'll see. But that was my quick thoughts on the coaching aspects and all that. Best of luck to all those guys in their careers. I hope they can find their new jobs or analyst jobs, or just enjoy retirement and move on. But yeah, so that was my quick thoughts on the coaching hires. But like I said, I had winning weeks against the spread and straight up. I went 8-7-1 against the spread, and I went straight up 9-7. So that equals up to 53.1 and 56.3% respectively. And my overall record to end the regular season, 272 games, I was 126, 140. I was 126 and 140 with 6 pushes against the spread, and straight up I went 175, 96, and 1. So under 100 losses, which is great in the regular season. And against the spread, not 500, but around 47.5%. So that's, okay in my book. I was just, right around 47.5%. I wish I could have got 52% against the spread, but, it's in a weird set of circumstances, and it's very hard looking at how situations go, and also just how games, can finish or upsets can happen in the league. All right, it's time for my predictions for Wild Card Weekend. So this Saturday in the first game, when the Las Vegas Raiders, the 6-seeded Las Vegas Raiders, the 5-seeded Las Vegas Raiders travel to Cincinnati to take on the number 4-seeded Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Cincinnati Bengals here minus 6.5, and the Cincinnati Bengals straight up. The next game on Saturday night, when the number 6-seeded New England Patriots travel to Buffalo to take on the number 3-seeded Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are 4.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Buffalo Bills here minus 4.5, and the Buffalo Bills straight up. Then on Sunday, when the number 7-seeded Philadelphia Eagles travel to Tampa Bay to take on the number 2-seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 9-point favorites in this game. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles here plus 9 to cover, but I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here straight up. Then the next game on Sunday afternoon, when the number 6-seeded San Francisco 49ers travel to Dallas to take on the number 3-seeded Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are 3-point favorites in this game. I'm going to once again hedge my bet here, so I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys here to win straight up, but give me the San Francisco 49ers plus 3. Then the next game, when the number 7-seeded Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Kansas City to take on the number 2-seeded Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 13-point favorites in this game. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs here minus 13 at Kansas City Chiefs straight up. And then finally, in the first ever Monday night game of Super Wildcard Weekend, when the number 5-seeded Arizona Cardinals travel to Los Angeles to take on the number 4-seeded Los Angeles Rams. The LA Rams are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me the Los Angeles Rams here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Arizona plus 4. All right, it's time for my thoughts on each game. The Cincinnati Bengals over the Las Vegas Raiders. I am going to take the Cincinnati Bengals here to win this game based on the level of talent. I can understand that, the Raiders' defensive line may have an advantage over the Bengals' offensive line. Joe Burrow has been one of the most sacked quarterbacks the entire year. When you look at the kicking matchup, I'll take Daniel Carlson over Evan McPherson. In the running games, you have 2 solid running backs, and the Raiders have a better, better offensive line and a better tight end. But when I look at the Bengals, I look at a team that's more complete, has more explosive skill positions at the wide receiver position. They have a better pass rush, in my opinion. And I just think at the end of the day, Joe Burrow getting the rest against the Browns. And here's the thing. Brandon Allen and the Bengals with their backups did an admirable job as a 5-point game. Case Keenum threw the quick touchdown to Demetric Felton late in the game to steal the game. And kudos to them. But, excuse me. I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals here to win this game based off the better quarterback play of Joe Burrow and the more explosive arsenal of weapons that the Bengals have offensively compared to the Raiders. And again, this game is going to be a bit closer than people think. I think that, the Raiders, they've been battle-tested. They have a competent defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley, and they're going to be motivated from the 41-15 blowout loss they suffered back several weeks ago to these same Bengals. The game where Joe Mixon had a great 100-yard rushing day, and McPherson set the rookie record for the most 50-plus yard field goals in the same game. And it's just one of those things to where I feel like with the Raiders, they got very fortunate. They had some injuries. The biggest one was to a defensive player named Darius Philon. He ended up getting carted off for the rest of the game, so I do not expect him to play. And he made the big stop on the 4th-and-3 conversion from the Chargers last night. But it's just one of those games to where the Bengals, I trust the Bengals' weapons. I trust the Bengals' defense a little bit more. The offensive line is going to be the advantage for the Raiders. And I just think Mixon and the Bengals' offense just has way too much to handle for a Raiders defense that secondary-wise is not really that great on any aspect of the ball. You have Desmond Trufant and Fackrell. And you have Mooring. They don't have Jonathan Abraham for the rest of the year. They have Nate Hobbs, who's not a bad safety. But I just really like that Bengals offense, 3 across, to beat up, and not very disciplined or talented Raiders secondary. Justin Herbert did it for over 400 yards and threw over 60 times. So if he could do it, Joe Burrow could do the same thing, if not better, with the talent he has offensively around him. I also just think there's a part of me going, the Bengals understand the history of this moment. So the last playoff game the Cincinnati Bengals won was back in the 1990 season in the divisional round against the Houston Oilers led by Boomer Esiason. This is the best chance for the Bengals in 32 years or 31 total years, 32 total seasons, in 31 years to finally win a playoff game and end the streak. And the Raiders, this is only their second playoff appearance in 19 years. They're trying to look for their first playoff win since the 2002 AFC Championship game. So both these teams have a lot of history and a lot of expectation riding on this game. But at the end of the day, I think the Raiders are going to be a little more banged up. I think the Bengals have a more dynamic offense around in terms of skill positions and running back. And I think Joe Burrow just has a better field day against the Raiders compared to Herbert, or he can basically play the same way. I think the Bengals run defense is much better. I think they'll be able to limit the run a bit more with Josh Jacobs and Peyton Barber. I think the Bengals win at least by 7. Should be a great game. It's a great game where nobody's under pressure, no expectations are held. Both these teams can just play hard-nosed, physical, or good football. I think at the end of the day, the Bengals are the better team. So that's why I like the Cincinnati Bengals here, minus 6.5, and the Cincinnati Bengals straight up. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the New England Patriots. This is one to where I'm taking the Buffalo Bills here to win this football game based off the fact of I saw the Patriots last night against the Dolphins. It was not great. Mac Jones has been 25th or in the bottom 12 of the league in terms of completion percentage, completions, touchdowns, interception ratio since December began. I think the Pats, they had a big sneaky loss in terms of defensive player Christian Barrymore. Fortunately, I heard that his MRI came back clean, so he does not have nearly as much damage as initially thought. And I'm going to take the Bills because I think there's a lot of motivation and understanding of how big this game is for the Bills. The Bills are in a spot to where, they have some confidence. They went into New England a few weeks ago, and they beat them, pretty decisively by 11 points. Josh Allen had one of his better games. Josh Allen's a roller coaster. You don't know exactly when he's going to be all-pro MVP level Josh Allen, and you don't know when he could be just as bad Josh Allen that lost to Jacksonville. But I think in this game, knowing what the Bills have offensive and defensive-wise, I don't think it's going to be as windy or as cold as it was back on a few Mondays ago. And I think Mac Jones is going to have to throw himself into positions to keep drives going, to get out of bad spots, or to make big plays for the Patriots to win this game. And I know the Pats have a routine history of beating the Bills. They've only won 4 times since Tom Brady and Belichick got together. And obviously Mac Jones is 1-1 against them now. But I'm going to take the Bills because I've been impressed with their running game lately. Devin Singletary is having playing some of the best football of the season for himself. You have Matt Breida, you have Isaiah McKenzie, you have Diggs, you have Beasley, you have Dawson Knox. You have a very talented Bills offense. I think a Bills defense that has led the league in point differential the entire season. I think they get one more dominating defensive performance. I think Mac is going to have to throw at least more than 3 times in this game. And I think the Bills, with their suffocating defense, solid running game, and a managing quarterback in Josh Allen that does not have to do a lot. And I think the Bills win this game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Pats win this game either because, again, it's the Pats, it's the Bills, it's expectations, it's Josh Allen, it's the whole kit and caboodle with the Bills and Pats. But I'm going to take the Bills at home. They are a little more motivated, they're a little more rested. I think they have more confidence in their quarterback and team compared to the Patriots with theirs. This is where, besides Mac Jones being efficient and a great game manager not turning it over, when quarterbacks like this are good, it's going to have to come down to ability, and I think Josh just has a decent more amount of ability compared to Mac, who, is not going to play that well. We'll find out. So that's why I like the Buffalo Bills here, minus 4.5, and the Buffalo Bills straight up. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm taking Tampa here based on the fact that they should get Shaq Barrett back. They should get Leonard Fournette back. Tom Brady is the oldest player in NFL history to lead the league in terms of passing yards and passing touchdowns. They got the number 2 seed by the Rams, losing to the 49ers, which put the Niners into the playoffs already. And I just feel like with the Bucs and Eagles, this game was played back in Week 5 or Week 6. The Bucs were thoroughly dominating. until Jalen got a late touchdown, 2-point conversion to cover a 6.5-point spread, but they ended up winning by 6, so that was very frustrating. I digress. But I look at the Eagles and Bucks, and I think the Bucks, their run defense is going to be stout. It's going to be consistent. It's going to be highly focused on stopping Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, any of the running back combinations you want in Philadelphia. This guy will have, this defense, along with the newly signed Vita Vea, will have a lot of confidence and momentum going into the game that they should be able to slow down the run, which will make Jalen throw more, which is his biggest Achilles heel as his time as an Eaglesman this season. Do I think the Eagles can compete with the Bucks? Absolutely, especially with how banged up that secondary is. It's definitely trying to get gelled back together, but also a lot of injuries just dealing with the main starters in the first place. But it comes down to it. The last time Brady lost in the wild card round was back in 2009 against the Ravens. Every other year since then, he didn't. Oh, no, sorry. 2 times since 2009. 2019, they lost to the Titans in Tom Brady's final game as a Patriot. Two times since 2009, they have lost in the wild card round. Then only is the distinction earned by the Baltimore Ravens and the Tennessee Titans. The Eagles are not one of those two teams, and I feel like the Bucs should easily, even with maybe not as spectacular a passing day from Tom Brady, they're not going to need as much because they're going to have Fournette, Bell, and their defense run the ball effectively, run the ball consistently, and give the Bucs a good win heading into their game, probably against the Cowboys the next week. I'm going to take Philadelphia here +9 because of the recency of how they played and the way they played against the Eagles last year. It was definitely a closer game to hold that 9 points and put it on the underdog. So that's all I like. Philadelphia here +9 with Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the San Francisco 49ers. I am taking the Dallas Cowboys here to win this football game based on Dak is going to be better than Jimmy. All the other aspects of the team, the run games, the offensive lines, the Niners have a better offensive line, the secondary, the whole kit and caboodle, it's basically the same type of argument. I just think that in this game, I think the Niners win this game based off of how Jimmy plays and if Jimmy turns it over. I'm expecting at least 1 to 2 turnovers from Jimmy Garoppolo that really seal this game for the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm just going to take the Dak outplays Jimmy in this big of a game. It's going to be fun to watch. It's the first time ever. But give me the Dallas Cowboys here to win straight up. I think they have the talent, consistency, and enough power that if when they go into the divisional round, probably against the Packers or the Bucks, it's going to be a great game no matter what happens. So that's why I like the Dallas Cowboys here to win straight up at San Francisco 49ers +3. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm taking Kansas City here over Pittsburgh. We saw this game 2 weeks ago. Kansas City put up 36 points. Pittsburgh only put up 10. The Steelers have had a nice little run. They beat their division teams, and the Colts lost to Jacksonville, which gave them the opportunity to gain the 7th seed going into the playoffs. This is really not even going to be a contest. I think some of those Chiefs that were there, Andy and them, they remember what happened back in 2016 where it was basically a field goal fest that won on the game. I think the Chiefs are going to be a lot less lenient or competitive in that way. I think the Chiefs at least won by 2 scores. And I think Patrick Mahomes is another great sensational playoff night to add to his impressive playoff resume. So that's why I like Kansas City here -13 and Kansas City straight up. And finally, the Los Angeles Rams over the Arizona Cardinals. I am taking the LA Rams here based on the fact that I think that the talent around the Rams, not exactly the quarterback, because I'd probably take Kyler Murray over Matt Stafford at this point, but I'm going to take the Rams based on a better overall team and the Rams being on home field. I know that you can say, look, the Cardinals are going to bring a lot of fans. The Cardinals beat them in week 1 by about 17 points. It was not great by any means. I think the Rams, with Jalen, with Vaughn, with some of the other players they're going to be able to get back, I think the Rams win this game in a very tough, intense, physical, and exhausting last game of the wildcard weekend. But I think the Rams will walk the W. But for the Cardinals, it's definitely a bit of a frustrating and disappointing year. But fortunately, the Cliff Kingsbury was not going to get fired, and his confidence, I think, enough to keep going into his next year with some confidence with the talent he has around him. Also, I just think, again, Arizona and the Rams, they're very both equal in their respective home fields. They ended up getting blown out by a good amount. So, who knows? But I'm going to take the Cardinals because I feel like the Rams are not going to get off to as great a start as people think. So, look, that's why I have Arizona +4 and the LA Rams straight up. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to see other great prognosticators such as Big Bad Sports Talk and Cody Roy Parker, Bridgewater's Finest, Halfmoon's Picks, Beetle Bailey, Gavin OC, Hatbox's Picks, and that is it. So once again, I am the Bengals, the Bills, the Bucks, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and Rams straight up. Or I have the Bengals, Bills, Eagles, Niners, Chiefs, and Cardinals against the spread. So until next week for the divisional round, good luck to anybody playing daily fantasy playoff, daily postseason fantasy football, and anybody out there just throwing pick'ems that are going through postseason just like I am. And quick programming note, I'm going to be doing my next week video on Tuesday due to the wildcard game, the extended wildcard weekend on Monday. So my divisional round video will not come out until Tuesday of next week. So that is it. So good luck to all players, teams, coaches, fellow prognosticators, any postseason fantasy playoff competitors, and fellow prognosticators. And until next week for my divisional round predictions, this is Matthew and Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.